The telegram had arrived 3 days before Zara Bennett was scheduled to board the westbound train, and the words still burned in her memory like a brand on cattle hide. Thomas Jensen died April 7th. Stop, trampled by stallion. Stop, deepest condolences. Stop. She stood on the platform in Philadelphia now, her 2 leather cases at her feet, watching the steam rise from the locomotive that would carry her 2,000 miles into a life that no longer existed. The sensible thing would have been to stay, to return to her aunt's boarding house and resume her position teaching piano to the daughters of merchants and lawyers. But Zara had sold everything she owned to pay for this ticket, had said her goodbyes, had promised Thomas in 17 letters over 8 months that she would come west and become his wife. The fact that he was no longer alive to marry seemed almost beside the point. She had nowhere else to go. The journey took 5 days, and with each passing mile, the cities grew smaller and the land grew wider. Zara pressed her face to the window and watched forests give way to farmland, farmland give way to prairie, prairie give way to something so vast and empty it made her chest ache. She had never seen the horizon stretch so far. In Philadelphia, buildings blocked the sky. Here, the sky was everything. She arrived in Enid, Oklahoma on the 15th of April, 1887, stepping off the train into air that smelled of dust and horses and something green she could not name. The town was smaller than she had imagined, a collection of wooden buildings scattered along a wide dirt road, with the railroad cutting through the center like a scar. Men in wide-brimmed hats stood in clusters outside the saloon. Women in calico dresses hurried past with baskets on their arms. Everyone seemed to know exactly where they belonged, which made Zara feel even more lost. She had written ahead to the address Thomas had given her, explaining that she was coming despite the tragedy, that she needed to at least see the place where he had lived and died. She hoped someone from the Jensen ranch would meet her at the station. She scanned the platform, looking for a sign with her name, a familiar face from the single photograph Thomas had sent. Miss Bennett. She turned to find a man standing a few feet away, hat in his hands. He was tall and lean, with dark hair that needed cutting and eyes the color of creek water after rain. His face was tanned from sun and wind, with lines around his eyes that suggested he spent more time squinting at horizons than reading books. He wore dusty work clothes and boots that had seen hard use, and there was something careful in the way he held himself, as if he was not sure of his welcome. "Yes," Zara said. "I am Zara Bennett, Nathan Jensen," he said. "Thomas was my brother." The air seemed to leave her lungs. She had known Thomas had family, but he had rarely mentioned them in his letters. She had imagined meeting them at the wedding, not like this, not standing on a train platform with his death hanging between them like smoke. "I am so sorry," she said, and the words felt inadequate, too small for the weight they were meant to carry. Nathan looked down at his hat, turning it in his hands. "We got your telegram. Did not think you would still come." "I had nowhere else to go," Zara said, and then wished she had lied, had said something noble about honoring commitments or respecting Thomas's memory. But the truth had a way of slipping out when she was tired, and she was very tired. Something shifted in Nathan's expression, a softening around the eyes. "Well, you are here now. Let me get your bags." He picked up her cases as if they weighed nothing and started toward a wagon hitched to 2 horses at the end of the street. Zara followed, trying not to stare at the town around her, at the sheer strangeness of it all. Everything felt precarious, temporary, as if a strong wind might blow it all away and leave nothing but grass behind. Nathan loaded her bags into the wagon bed, and then offered his hand to help her up onto the seat. His palm was rough with calluses, his grip strong and steady. Zara settled her skirts and clasped her hands in her lap, suddenly aware that she was about to drive out of town with a man she had never met, to a place she had never seen, for reasons that no longer made any sense. Nathan climbed up beside her and took the reins. "Ranch is about an hour out," he said. "We can stop if you need anything." "No, thank you, I am fine." They drove in silence through the town and out onto the open road, if it could be called a road. It was more a pair of ruts worn into the earth by wagon wheels, winding through grassland that stretched away in every direction. The sky overhead was impossibly blue, without a single cloud to break it. The wind moved through the grass in waves, making it look like water, and Zara had to grip the edge of the seat to remind herself she was not drowning. "Thomas talked about you in his letters," Nathan said after a while. "Said you played piano like an angel, said you could recite poetry from memory. Said you were the smartest woman he had ever met." Zara felt tears prick at her eyes and blinked them back. He was very kind in his assessment. Thomas was not much for exaggeration. If he said it, he meant it. She looked over at Nathan, trying to see the resemblance. They had the same strong jaw, the same set to their shoulders, but where Thomas had been fair-haired and open-faced in his photograph, Nathan was darker, more guarded. She wondered what it was like to lose a brother, if it felt like losing a piece of yourself. How did it happen? She asked, and then immediately wished she had not. But she needed to know. She had traveled 2,000 miles to marry a ghost, and she needed to know how he had become one. Nathan was quiet for a long moment, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. "We were breaking a new stallion. Wild one, caught up in the hills. Thomas was good with horses, better than me, but this one was different, mean. It threw him and came down on him before anyone could get there." He paused. "He did not suffer, it was fast." Zara nodded, though she was not sure if that made it better or worse. Fast meant Thomas had not had time to be afraid, but it also meant he had not had time to say goodbye, to leave any final words for the people he loved. He had simply been there one moment and gone the next, like a candle blown out by the wind. "We buried him on a hill overlooking the ranch," Nathan continued. "He loved that spot, used to ride up there to think." "Thank you for telling me," Zara said. Her voice sounded small against the vastness of the prairie, but Nathan nodded as if he had heard. The ranch appeared slowly, growing out of the landscape like something that had always been there. First a windmill turning lazily in the breeze, then a barn and several outbuildings, then the house itself, a sturdy 2-story structure with a wide porch wrapped around the front. Cattle dotted the surrounding pastures, and Zara could see men working near the corrals, their shouts carrying on the wind. Nathan pulled the wagon up to the house and set the brake. An older woman came out onto the porch, wiping her hands on her apron. She had gray hair pulled back in a bun and a face that had known both laughter and sorrow. "This is our housekeeper, Mrs. Murphy," Nathan said. "She has been with the family since my father started the ranch." Mrs. Murphy came down the steps and took Zara's hands in hers. "You poor dear. What a terrible thing to come all this way and find such tragedy. Come inside and I will make you some tea. You must be exhausted." The kindness in her voice broke something open in Zara's chest, and she found herself blinking back tears again. "Thank you. You are very kind, Mrs." Murphy led her into the house, through a front room with simple furniture and braided rugs, and into a kitchen that smelled of bread and coffee. She settled Zara at her rough-hewn table and bustled about, putting a kettle on the stove and arranging cups on a tray. Nathan brought in Zara's bags and stood awkwardly in the doorway. "I put you in the guest room upstairs," he said. "Second door on the right. You can stay as long as you need. We will figure out the rest later." "I do not want to impose," Zara began, but Nathan shook his head. "You are not imposing. Thomas would have wanted us to look after you. Besides, we have the room." He left before she could respond, and Mrs. Murphy brought over the tea. "Do not mind Nathan," she said. "He has had a hard time since Thomas died." They were very close, and Nathan blames himself for not getting to the horse faster. "It was not his fault," Zara said. "No, but try telling him that. That boy carries the weight of the world on his shoulders." Mrs. Murphy poured the tea and added a generous spoonful of sugar to Zara's cup. "Now, tell me about yourself. Thomas said you were a piano teacher in Philadelphia." They talked for an hour, and Zara found herself relaxing despite everything. Mrs. Murphy had a way of asking questions that made you want to answer, of listening that made you feel heard. She learned that the ranch had been in the Jensen family for 15 years, that Nathan and Thomas's parents had died of fever when the boys were young, that Nathan had been running the place since he was 19 years old. She learned that Thomas had been the charming one, the one who made friends easily, while Nathan was quieter, more serious, the one who got things done. "Thomas met you through a matrimonial advertisement, is that right?" Mrs. Murphy asked. Zara nodded. "My aunt thought I should marry. I was 23 and had no prospects in Philadelphia. Teaching piano does not pay well, and I could not afford to be particular. Thomas's advertisement seemed sincere. He wrote about wanting a partner, someone to share his life with, not just someone to cook and clean. It appealed to me. And now here you are, and he is gone. What will you do?" It was the question Zara had been avoiding since the telegram arrived. "I do not know. I spent all my money on the train ticket. I have no way to get back, and even if I did, there is nothing to go back to. I suppose I will have to find work here if anyone is hiring." Mrs. Murphy frowned. "Enid is not much of a town yet, not many opportunities for a woman with your education. Most work is ranching or farming, and that is hard labor." "I am not afraid of hard work," Zara said, though in truth she had never done anything harder than scrubbing floors and hauling water for her aunt's boarders. Mrs. Murphy patted her hand. "We will sort something out. For now you should rest. You have had a long journey." She showed Zara up to the guest room, a small but clean space with a narrow bed, a washstand, and a window that looked out over the prairie. Zara's bag sat at the foot of the bed. She thanked Mrs. Murphy and closed the door, then sat down on the bed and let herself cry for the first time since the telegram arrived. She cried for Thomas, whom she had never met but had allowed herself to imagine a future with. She cried for herself, for the mess she had made of her life, for the 1,000 miles between her and everything familiar. She cried until her throat was raw and her eyes burned, and then she lay down on the bed and fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. When she woke, the sun was low on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. She washed her face and changed into a fresh dress, then made her way downstairs. She could hear voices in the kitchen and followed the sound. Nathan sat at the table with 2 other men, all of them bent over plates piled high with beef and potatoes. Mrs. Murphy was at the stove, and she looked up when Zara appeared in the doorway. "There you are, dear. Come and eat. You must be starving." The men stood as Zara entered, and Nathan made introductions. "This is Jack and Henry. They work on the ranch." The men nodded politely, and Zara took a seat at the table. Mrs. Murphy set a plate in front of her, and she realized she was indeed starving. She had not eaten since breakfast on the train. The conversation around the table was about cattle and fences and water rights, things Zara knew nothing about. She ate in silence, listening to the rhythm of their voices, the easy camaraderie of men who worked together. Nathan spoke the least, but when he did, the others listened. He had a quiet authority that reminded Zara of her father, who had been a foreman at a textile mill before he died. After dinner, Jack and Henry went back to the bunkhouse, and Mrs. Murphy shooed Nathan and Zara out of the kitchen so she could clean up. Zara found herself alone with Nathan on the front porch, watching the last light fade from the sky. "Thank you for letting me stay," she said. "I know this must be strange for you." Nathan leaned against the porch railing, his arms crossed. "It is strange," he admitted, "but not bad strange, just strange. I will try to find work in town. I do not want to be a burden." "You are not a burden. And like Mrs. Murphy said, there is not much work in Enid for someone like you. Most women here are farmers' wives or work in the saloon, and I do not think either of those would suit you." Zara bristled slightly at the assumption. "I am stronger than I look." "I did not say you were not strong. I said it would not suit you. There is a difference." Nathan looked at her, his expression unreadable in the growing dark. "Thomas wanted you to have a good life here. That is why he sent for you. I think we owe it to him to make sure that happens." "How?" Zara asked. "I cannot marry a dead man." The words came out harsher than she intended, and Nathan flinched. "No, you cannot." They stood in silence for a long moment, the night settling around them. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled, and the sound made Zara shiver. Nathan noticed and straightened up. "You should go inside. It gets cold out here at night." Zara nodded and turned toward the door, then paused. "Nathan, can you show me where he is buried? Thomas, I mean. I would like to see it." "Tomorrow," Nathan said. "I will take you tomorrow." Zara went inside and up to her room, but sleep did not come easily. She lay in the narrow bed and listened to the sounds of the ranch at night, the lowing of cattle, the creak of the windmill, the wind moving through the grass. She thought about Thomas, about the letters they had exchanged, about the way he had described the ranch as a place where a person could breathe, where the sky was big enough to hold all your dreams. She thought about Nathan, about the careful way he had helped her down from the wagon, about the grief he carried in the lines around his eyes. She thought about what she was going to do now, stranded in Oklahoma with no money and no prospects, dependent on the charity of strangers who had no reason to help her. She must have slept eventually, because she woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the smell of coffee drifting up from the kitchen. She dressed quickly and went downstairs to find Mrs. Murphy alone, kneading bread dough on the counter. "Good morning, dear. There is coffee on the stove and biscuits in the basket. Nathan is out with the cattle, but he said he would be back by mid-morning to take you up to the grave." Zara poured herself coffee and took a biscuit, eating at the table while Mrs. Murphy worked. The silence was comfortable, and Zara found herself watching the older woman's practiced movements, the way she folded the dough over and over, her hands sure and strong. "How long have you worked for the Jensens?" Zara asked. 20 years this coming fall. I came out here with my husband when this was just open land and a dream. He worked for Nathan's father, helped build this ranch from nothing. He died 10 years ago, thrown from a horse, and the boys kept me on. They did not have to, but they did. Mrs. Murphy's voice was matter of fact, but there was warmth in it, affection. "They seem like good men." "They are. Nathan especially. He gave up a lot to keep this place running after his parents died. Thomas was younger, more restless. He wanted adventure, excitement. Nathan just wanted to make sure everyone was taken care of." Mrs. Murphy shaped the dough into a loaf and set it aside to rise. "I think that is why Thomas sent for you. He was ready to settle down, to have something of his own. He talked about you constantly after your letters started coming. It was like he had found something he did not know he was missing." The words should have comforted Zara, but instead they made the loss feel more real. Thomas had been a real person with real hopes, not just a name on a piece of paper, and now he was gone. Nathan returned just before noon, and they rode out together on horseback. Zara had learned to ride as a girl, but it had been years, and she was clumsy mounting the gentle mare Nathan had saddled for her. He did not comment on it, just waited patiently while she settled herself and gathered the reins. They rode in silence through the pastures and up a long slope that overlooked the ranch. At the top, beneath a lone cottonwood tree, was a small fenced area with 2 headstones. Nathan dismounted and helped Zara down, then stood back while she approached. The first headstone read, Thomas Jensen, 1864–1887, beloved son and brother. The second was older, weathered, James and Margaret Jensen, together in heaven. Zara knelt in the grass and traced the letters of Thomas's name with her fingers. She tried to feel something, grief or connection or regret, but mostly she just felt numb. She had never known him. All she had were letters and a photograph and a future that had never existed. "I am sorry I was not here," she said quietly. "I am sorry I did not get to meet you." Nathan stood a few feet away, his hat in his hands. "He would have liked you. You were everything he said he wanted, smart, kind, brave enough to come out here alone." "I do not feel very brave." "Brave people rarely do." They stayed for a while, the wind moving through the cottonwood leaves, the sun warm on their shoulders. Finally, Zara stood and brushed off her skirt. "Thank you for bringing me here." They rode back to the ranch in silence, but it was a different kind of silence, less awkward, more companionable. When they reached the barn, Nathan helped Zara dismount and took the reins of both horses. "I have been thinking about your situation," he said. "And I have an idea, but I do not know if you will like it." Zara waited, her heart suddenly pounding. "Marry me instead," Nathan said. The words hung in the air between them, impossible and ridiculous and completely unexpected. Zara stared at him, trying to make sense of what he had just said. "What, marry me? In May? That gives you 2 weeks to think about it, to get to know me a little, to decide if you can stand living here. You came west to marry a Jensen and build a life on this ranch. Thomas is gone, but I am still here. The ranch is still here. The life you wanted is still here." "You do not even know me," Zara said, "and you did not know Thomas, but you were willing to marry him. That was different." How? Zara could not answer that. It had been different because Thomas was a stranger in letters, someone she could imagine into whatever shape she needed. Nathan was standing in front of her, real and solid and far too close, and she could not imagine him into anything. "You do not want to marry me," she said. "You are just being kind." "I am not being kind, I am being practical." Nathan's voice was steady, reasonable. "This ranch needs a woman's hand. Mrs. Murphy is getting older and she cannot do everything. I am tired of eating burned meals and sewing my own buttons. I am tired of coming home to an empty house. Thomas wanted this for both of you, a partnership. I can offer you the same thing. That is not a reason to get married. It is as good a reason as any, better than most." Nathan looked at her directly, his creek-water eyes serious. "I am not asking you to love me, Zara. I am asking you to build a life with me. If affection comes later, that is fine. If it does not, we will still be partners, working toward the same goals. You will have security, a home, a purpose. I will have help with the ranch and someone to come home to. It is a fair trade." Zara felt dizzy, like the ground had tilted beneath her feet. "You are serious." "I am serious." "Can I think about it?" "Of course. Take your time. Like I said, 2 weeks until May. That should give you enough time to decide." He led the horses into the barn, leaving Zara standing in the yard, her mind spinning. Marry Nathan Jensen. Marry a man she had known for less than a day. A man who looked at her with polite distance and talked about marriage like a business arrangement. It was absurd. It was impossible. It was also her only option. That night at dinner, Zara watched Nathan across the table, trying to see him as a potential husband. He was handsome in a rough-hewn way, all sharp angles and sun-browned skin. His hands were scarred and calloused from work, but they moved with precision when he cut his meat or reached for his water glass. He spoke little, but when he did, his words were carefully chosen, thoughtful. He treated Mrs. Murphy with respect, Jack and Henry with fairness. He had loved his brother enough to offer to marry the woman Thomas had sent for, which suggested a capacity for selflessness that Zara found both admirable and unsettling. Could she marry this man? Could she wake up beside him every morning and share his name and bear his children, assuming he wanted children? Could she learn to care for him, or would they spend their lives as polite strangers sharing a house? Over the next week, Zara tried to learn the rhythms of the ranch. She helped Mrs. Murphy in the kitchen, learning to cook over a wood stove and bake bread that did not come out like rocks. She collected eggs from the chickens and fed them scraps, watching them peck and cluck in their pen. She swept floors and beat rugs and discovered muscles she did not know she had. Nathan was gone most days, riding out with Jack and Henry to check on the cattle, mend fences, oversee the branding. But in the evenings, he made a point of talking to Zara, asking her about her day, telling her about the ranch. He showed her the account books, explaining the finances in simple terms, how many head of cattle they had, what they sold for, what it cost to keep the place running. He was not trying to impress her, Zara realized. He was trying to show her what she would be getting into, the reality of ranch life without the romantic gloss. "It is not easy," he said one night as they sat on the porch after dinner. "The winters are harsh, and the summers are hotter than you can imagine. We lose cattle to disease and predators. The market can change overnight. Some years we barely break even, but it is ours. This land, this life, it belongs to us and no one can take it away." "You love it," Zara said. "I do. It is the only thing I have ever been good at." Nathan looked out at the darkening prairie. "Thomas was good at everything. He could have done anything, gone anywhere. But I only know how to do this. So if you marry me, this is what you get. A man who smells like cattle and dirt, who works from dawn until dark, who cannot dance or quote poetry or offer you anything fancy. But I can promise you a roof over your head and food on the table and honesty. I will never lie to you, Zara. I will never cheat you or hurt you on purpose. That is all I have to offer." Zara's chest felt tight. "Why are you really doing this, Nathan? It cannot just be about burned meals and buttons." He was quiet for a long time. "I made Thomas a promise. The night before he died, we had an argument. He wanted to go to town and I wanted him to stay and help with the branding. I was angry, said some things I should not have. The last thing I said to him was that he never thought about anyone but himself. Then the next morning the stallion killed him, and those were the last words I ever spoke to my brother." Nathan's voice was rough, raw with grief. "I cannot bring him back. But I can make sure the woman he loved has the life he wanted for her. I can keep that promise." "I was not the woman he loved," Zara said gently. "I was a stranger in letters. He did not know me any more than I knew him. Maybe, but he wanted to love you. He wanted to build something good with you. That has to count for something." It did count for something. Zara could see that now, the weight Nathan was carrying, the guilt that drove him. She understood it because she felt it too, the strange obligation to honor a connection that had never fully formed. Thomas had reached across the distance and offered her a lifeline, and even though he was gone, the lifeline was still there, held out by his brother. On the 28th of April, 10 days after she arrived in Enid, Zara found Nathan in the barn repairing a saddle. He looked up when she entered, and she could see the question in his eyes. "Yes," she said, "I will marry you." Nathan set down the saddle and stood slowly. "You are sure?" "I am sure. You are right that it is practical. I need a home and you need help with the ranch. We can make it work." "All right then." Nathan held out his hand and Zara took it. His grip was firm, sealing the bargain. "I will ride into town tomorrow and talk to the preacher. We can have a simple ceremony here at the ranch. Is that acceptable?" "That is acceptable." They stood there in the dusty barn, hands clasped, making promises without words. Zara felt a strange calm settle over her. She was doing this. She was marrying Nathan Jensen in May, just as the title of her life seemed to suggest. It was not the life she had imagined, but it was a life, and that was more than she had when she stepped off the train. The wedding was arranged for the 2nd of May, giving Zara barely any time to prepare. Mrs. Murphy produced a dress that had belonged to Nathan's mother, a simple ivory gown with lace at the collar and cuffs. It fit well enough with a few quick alterations, and Zara stood in front of the mirror in her room, trying to recognize herself. She looked pale and serious, her dark hair pinned up, her gray eyes wide. She looked like a bride, which seemed impossible given everything. The ceremony took place in the front room of the ranch house, with Mrs. Murphy, Jack Henry, and a few neighbors as witnesses. The preacher was a weathered man who smelled of tobacco and spoke in a booming voice, reading from a worn Bible about love and duty and cleaving unto one another. Nathan stood beside Zara in his best clothes, a dark suit that looked uncomfortable on his lean frame. He spoke his vows clearly, his voice steady, and Zara repeated hers, feeling as if she were watching herself from a distance. "You may kiss your bride," the preacher said, and Nathan leaned down and pressed his lips to hers, brief and chaste. It was Zara's first kiss, and she felt nothing except awkwardness and relief when it was over. There was a small meal afterward, Mrs. Murphy's best cooking, and a cake that tasted of honey and almonds. People congratulated them and wished them well, and Zara smiled until her face hurt. Nathan stayed close to her side, a steady presence, and she was grateful for it. As the sun set, the guests departed, and Mrs. Murphy discreetly retired to her own small cabin behind the main house. Zara and Nathan were left alone in the front room, the silence stretching between them. "You can have the main bedroom," Nathan said. "I will sleep in Thomas's old room across the hall." Zara blinked. "We are married." "I know, but I told you I would not force anything. When you are ready for more, you can tell me. Until then, we are partners. That is enough." Relief and something that might have been disappointment warred in Zara's chest. "Thank you. Get some rest. Tomorrow starts early on a ranch." He left her standing in the front room, and Zara climbed the stairs to the main bedroom, the one that had belonged to Nathan's parents. It was larger than the guest room, with a wide bed and a dresser and a rocking chair by the window. Her few belongings looked lost in the space, and she changed into her nightgown feeling like an imposter. She lay in the bed and stared at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of Nathan moving around in the room across the hall. She was married. She was Zara Jensen now, mistress of this ranch, partner to a man she barely knew. It should have terrified her, but instead she felt oddly calm. She had made her choice, and now she would live with it. The days fell into a pattern. Zara woke before dawn and helped Mrs. Murphy with breakfast, learning to make the thick coffee and hearty meals the ranch hands needed. She tended the vegetable garden behind the house, coaxing tomatoes and beans from the Oklahoma soil. She mended clothes and washed linens and swept floors, falling into bed each night exhausted but satisfied. It was hard work, harder than anything she had done in Philadelphia, but there was something honest about it, something real. Nathan was gone most days, but he always came back for dinner, sitting across from Zara at the table and telling her about his day. She learned to read his moods in the set of his shoulders, the lines around his eyes. She learned that he liked his coffee black, that he had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard, that he was fiercely protective of the people and things he cared about. They were careful with each other, polite, feeling their way through this strange new relationship. Nathan never pushed, never demanded more than Zara was willing to give. He treated her with respect as a partner, and Zara found herself responding to that, opening up in small ways. She told him about her childhood in Philadelphia, about her father's death and her aunt's cold practicality. She told him about teaching piano to bored rich girls who had no interest in music. She told him about the loneliness that had driven her to answer Thomas's advertisement, the desperate hope that there was something more waiting for her. Nathan listened without judgment, and when she was done, he told her about growing up on the ranch, about his parents' death, about the weight of responsibility he had carried since he was barely more than a boy. He told her about Thomas, about the brother who had been his opposite in every way, charming where Nathan was serious, spontaneous where Nathan was careful. He told her about the guilt he carried, the last words he could never take back. "Thomas would have forgiven you," Zara said one night as they sat on the porch, watching the stars come out. "I know, but I have not forgiven myself." "Maybe you should try." Nathan looked at her, something soft in his expression. "Maybe." It was early June when things began to shift between them. The weather had turned warm, and the prairie was green from spring rains. Zara had been on the ranch for almost 2 months, and she was starting to feel like she belonged there, like the land and the work and the people were becoming part of her. She was hanging laundry one afternoon when Nathan rode up, dismounting quickly and striding over to her. "I need your help," he said. "What is wrong?" "One of the cows is having trouble calving. Mrs. Murphy is in town and I cannot manage alone. Can you come?" Zara dropped the shirt she was holding and followed him to the barn. The cow was lying on her side in a stall, breathing hard, her eyes rolling. Nathan knelt beside her and examined her carefully. "The calf is breech. I need to turn it, but I need you to hold her head and keep her calm." Zara had never been around a birthing animal in her life, but she did not hesitate. She knelt in the straw and placed her hands on the cow's head, stroking her and murmuring softly. The cow's breathing slowed slightly, and Nathan nodded. "Good, keep doing that." He worked quickly, his hands disappearing inside the cow, his face tight with concentration. The cow bellowed and thrashed, and Zara held on, talking nonsense, her heart pounding. It seemed to take forever, but finally Nathan pulled back, and a moment later a wet, slippery calf slid out onto the straw. Nathan cleared the calf's nose and mouth, and after a moment it took a shuddering breath and let out a weak bleat. The cow lifted her head and began licking her baby, and Nathan sat back on his heels, his shirt soaked with sweat and blood. "You did it," Zara said. "We did it." Nathan looked at her, and for the first time since she had met him, he smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes and transformed his face. "Thank you." Zara smiled back, feeling something warm bloom in her chest. They washed up at the pump outside the barn, laughing at how filthy they both were, and Zara realized she felt happy. Not content or resigned, but genuinely happy. She was doing something that mattered, helping in a way that made a difference, and Nathan saw her, really saw her, not as a burden or an obligation but as a partner. That night after dinner, Nathan lingered instead of immediately going to his room. "I want to show you something," he said. He led her outside and down to the corral where a young mare stood in the moonlight. She was a beautiful animal, dark brown with a white star on her forehead, and she nickered softly when Nathan approached. "This is Starlight. She is yours." Zara stared at him. "Mine." "You need a horse if you are going to live here. I have been training her for you. She is gentle, easy to handle. I thought you could name her, but Starlight seemed to fit. She is perfect." Zara stepped closer, running her hand along the mare's neck. The horse leaned into her touch, and Zara felt tears prick at her eyes. No one had ever given her something like this before, something chosen specifically for her, something that required thought and effort. "Thank you, Nathan. You are welcome." He stood beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. "You have been a good partner, Zara, better than I expected. I just wanted you to know that. You have been good to me too. I know this was not what you planned for your life. Life rarely goes according to plan. But sometimes the detours are better than the original route." They stood there in the moonlight, the mare between them, and Zara felt something shift, the careful distance they had maintained beginning to dissolve. She was not sure when it had happened, but somewhere between the laundry and the calf and the gift of a horse, she had started to care about Nathan Jensen. Not because she had to, not out of obligation or gratitude, but because he was a good man who worked hard and treated her with respect, and gave her gifts that mattered. Over the following weeks, Zara found herself seeking out Nathan's company. She brought him water when he was working in the hot sun. She mended his shirts with extra care, making sure the stitches were small and even. She asked him questions about the ranch, about his plans for the future, and listened carefully to his answers. She watched the way he moved, the way he tilted his head when he was thinking, the rare smiles that softened his face. Nathan seemed to notice the change. He started finding excuses to be near her, to brush against her hand when he passed her something at the table, to stand close when they were looking at the account books together. He complimented her cooking, her garden, the way she handled Starlight. He told her stories about the land, about the history of Oklahoma, about the dreams he had for the ranch. One evening in late June, they rode out together to check on a section of fence. The sky was streaked with pink and gold, and the air was warm and sweet-smelling. They worked side by side, repairing the broken rails, and when they were done, Nathan turned to her. "Zara, I need to tell you something." Her heart started to pound. "What is it?" "I know I said this was just a partnership, that I was not asking you to love me. But I do not think I can keep pretending that is enough." He took a breath. "I care about you, more than I expected to, more than I thought I could. You make me laugh, and you make me think, and you make this place feel like a home instead of just a ranch. I know it has only been a couple of months, but I need you to know how I feel." Zara felt tears sting her eyes. "I care about you too, Nathan. I think I have for a while, but I was afraid to say it. I did not want you to think I was just being grateful or trying to make the best of things. And now I think I am falling in love with you." The words felt huge, terrifying, but also right. "I came here to marry your brother, but I am so glad I married you instead. I cannot imagine my life without you now." Nathan stepped closer, his hands coming up to cup her face. "Can I kiss you? Really kiss you this time?" "Yes." His lips met hers, and this time it was not chaste or brief. This time it was deep and searching, full of all the things they had been too careful to say. Zara wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him back, pouring everything she felt into it, all the longing and fear and hope. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. Nathan rested his forehead against hers. "Come to my room tonight. Be my wife in truth." "Yes," Zara whispered. "Yes." That night, Zara waited until the house was quiet, then crossed the hall to Nathan's room. He was waiting for her, and he drew her inside and closed the door. They came together with a tenderness that surprised her, Nathan's hands gentle as he undid the buttons of her nightgown, his lips soft against her skin. He was patient, careful, making sure she was ready, and when they finally joined together, Zara felt something settle into place, a rightness she had not known she was missing. Afterward they lay tangled in the sheets, Nathan's arm around her, her head on his chest. Zara could hear his heartbeat steady and strong, and she traced patterns on his skin with her fingertips. "I love you," Nathan said quietly. "I should have said it before, but I am saying it now. I love you, Zara. I love you too." They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, and when Zara woke in the morning, she felt different, more solid somehow, more real. She was Nathan's wife now in every sense of the word, and the thought filled her with a joy so intense it was almost painful. The summer passed in a blur of work and laughter and stolen moments. Zara moved her things into Nathan's room, and they settled into the rhythms of married life. They worked side by side during the day and came together at night, learning each other's bodies, finding pleasure and comfort in each other's arms. Nathan taught Zara to ride better, to rope cattle, to read the weather in the clouds. Zara taught Nathan to appreciate music, even without a piano, singing while she worked, humming melodies that made him smile. They argued sometimes, sharp disagreements about money or plans or the best way to handle a problem, but they always made up, learning to compromise, to listen, to value each other's opinions. Mrs. Murphy watched them with satisfaction, pleased that her plan to encourage the match had worked out so well. Jack and Henry treated Zara as one of their own, asking her opinion on ranch matters, teasing her gently about her city ways. The neighbors accepted her, inviting her to quilting bees and church socials, and Zara found herself building a community in this vast, empty place. In August, Zara realized her monthly courses were late. She waited another week to be sure, then told Nathan one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, "I think I am with child." Nathan's face went through a dozen emotions in as many seconds: shock, fear, joy, wonder. "Are you sure?" "Not completely. But all the signs are there. I will know for certain in another few weeks." He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "A baby, our baby. Are you happy?" "I am terrified and thrilled and happier than I have ever been in my life." He kissed her forehead. "You are going to be an amazing mother." "I hope so." The pregnancy was confirmed a few weeks later, and Nathan became almost comically protective, insisting Zara rest more, take on lighter chores, avoid anything that might be dangerous. Zara tolerated it with amusement and occasional exasperation, knowing it came from love. The baby was due in April, almost exactly a year after Thomas's death. It felt like a circle closing, new life emerging from loss. Zara thought about Thomas sometimes, about the man she had never met, and she hoped he would have been happy for them, that he would have approved of the way things had turned out. The winter was hard, just as Nathan had warned. Snow blanketed the prairie, and the wind howled day and night, rattling the windows and finding every crack in the walls. Zara spent long days inside, sewing baby clothes, helping Mrs. Murphy with preserves and baking, reading the few books the ranch owned. Nathan and the hands worked tirelessly to keep the cattle fed and safe, coming in at night frozen and exhausted. But even in the hardship, there was a coziness to it, a sense of being hunkered down together against the elements. Zara's belly grew round, and she felt the baby move, tiny flutters at first, then stronger kicks that made Nathan laugh with delight when he pressed his hand to her stomach. He talked to the baby at night, telling it about the ranch, about the life waiting for it, and Zara fell even more in love with him watching him prepare to be a father. On the 12th of April, 1888, Zara went into labor. Mrs. Murphy sent Nathan to fetch the doctor from town, and he rode like the devil was chasing him, returning with the doctor in record time. The labor was long and difficult, and there were moments when Zara thought she could not do it, that the pain would break her. But Nathan stayed by her side, holding her hand, whispering encouragement, and finally, as dawn was breaking, the baby was born. "It is a boy," the doctor announced, placing the squalling infant on Zara's chest. Zara looked down at her son, at his red, wrinkled face and tiny fists, and felt her heart expand until it hurt. Nathan leaned over them both, his eyes wet with tears, and touched the baby's head with one gentle finger. "He is perfect," Nathan said. "You are perfect." They named him Thomas Nathan Jensen, honoring both the past and the future. Little Thomas had his father's dark hair and his mother's gray eyes, and he was loved from the moment he drew his first breath. The years that followed were full and rich. Zara gave birth to 2 more children, a daughter named Margaret after Nathan's mother, and another son they called James after Nathan's father. The ranch prospered under Nathan's careful management and Zara's support. They expanded the herd, built new barns, hired more hands. Zara started a small school in town, teaching the children of Enid to read and write and do their sums. And she found joy in it, in shaping young minds and passing on her love of learning. Nathan grew into his role as father and husband, his seriousness tempered by laughter, his careful nature balanced by Zara's willingness to take chances. They grew old together, their love deepening with each passing season, each shared challenge, each small victory. On their 20th anniversary, Nathan took Zara back to the hill where Thomas was buried. The cottonwood tree had grown taller, and wildflowers bloomed around the graves. They stood together in the shade, hands clasped, remembering the strange way their life together had begun. "Do you ever regret it?" Nathan asked. "Marrying me instead of him?" Zara looked at her husband, at the silver in his dark hair, the lines around his eyes, the strong, capable hands that had held hers through so much. "Never. Not for a single moment. I think maybe it was always supposed to be you. Thomas brought me here, but you made me stay. You gave me a life I could never have imagined, and I am grateful every day. I am the grateful one. You took a chance on a grieving cowboy with nothing to offer but hard work and honest intentions. You turned a house into a home and gave me a family. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Zara." They kissed there in the shade of the cottonwood tree, surrounded by the past and the future, and Zara felt the rightness of it all, the way her life had unfolded in ways she could never have predicted but would not change for anything. She had come west to marry his brother who died in April. The cowboy had said, "Then marry me in May." And in doing so, he had given her everything she had ever wanted and so much more. A home, a family, a love that had grown from practicality into passion, from partnership into profound connection. She had traveled 2,000 miles to find her life, and she had found it here on this ranch, with this man, under this vast Oklahoma sky. As they walked back down the hill toward home, toward the house where their children waited, toward the life they had built together, Zara thought about all the choices that had led her here. The decision to answer Thomas's advertisement, the courage to board the train despite the telegram, the willingness to say yes to Nathan's unexpected proposal. Each choice had been a leap of faith, and each leap had brought her closer to exactly where she needed to be. The sun was setting, painting the prairie in shades of gold and rose, and Nathan slipped his arm around her waist. Zara leaned into him, solid and warm and utterly familiar, and smiled. This was her life now. This man, this land, these people. It was not the life she had planned, but it was infinitely better than anything she could have planned. They reached the house as the last light was fading from the sky. Through the windows, Zara could see Mrs. Murphy helping young Margaret set the table, could hear Thomas and James arguing about something in the front room. The sounds of home, of family, of belonging. Nathan opened the door and gestured for her to go in first. "After you, Mrs. Jensen." Zara stepped inside, into the warmth and light and noise, and Nathan followed, closing the door behind them. Outside, the prairie stretched away in all directions, wild and beautiful and endless. But inside, there was this: love and laughter and the life they had made together against all odds. She had come west a stranger, alone and afraid. She had stayed and become something more: a wife, a mother, a teacher, a rancher. She had found her place in this vast country, had put down roots in soil she had never imagined walking on. And it had all started with a telegram announcing a death and a cowboy's practical proposal. Then, "Marry me in May." Those 5 words had changed everything, had given her a second chance at the dream that had brought her west. Nathan had offered her partnership, and she had accepted. But what they had built together went far beyond partnership. It was love, deep and abiding and real, the kind of love that weathered storms and celebrated triumphs and grew stronger with every passing year. As Zara helped Mrs. Murphy finish preparing dinner, as she listened to Nathan's deep voice talking with their sons in the other room, as she watched Margaret carefully folding napkins with her small, serious hands, she felt a profound sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought her here, for the man who had given her a home when she had nowhere else to go, for the children who filled her days with purpose and joy, for the life that had unfolded in ways both expected and surprising. That night, after the children were in bed and the house was quiet, Zara and Nathan sat together on the porch as they had so many times before. The sky was full of stars, more stars than she had ever seen in Philadelphia, a vast glittering expanse that made her feel both small and connected to something infinite. "What are you thinking about?" Nathan asked, his hand finding hers in the darkness. "Everything. How I got here. How lucky I am. How much I love you. I love you too, more than I can say." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the night sounds of the prairie, the distant lowing of cattle, the whisper of wind through grass. Zara thought about the girl who had stepped off the train in Enid almost exactly 20 years ago, scared and uncertain and desperate for a fresh start. She thought about the woman she had become, shaped by this land and this life and this love. "Nathan, yes, thank you. For what?" "For asking me to marry you, for taking a chance on me, for loving me." He squeezed her hand. "Best decision I ever made. Mine too." They stayed there until late into the night, talking about everything and nothing, making plans for the future, remembering the past. When they finally went inside and climbed the stairs to their room, Zara felt the same sense of rightness she had felt that first night when she had crossed the hall to Nathan's room, the certainty that this was where she belonged. As she lay in Nathan's arms, listening to his breathing slow and deepen as he fell asleep, Zara thought about Thomas Jensen, the man she had never met but who had changed her life by bringing her west. She hoped he was at peace, wherever he was, and that he knew the gift he had given her, even if he had not meant to. He had offered her a new life, and his brother had made that life possible. She closed her eyes and let herself drift toward sleep, secure in the knowledge that tomorrow would bring more of the same: hard work and simple pleasures, challenges and triumphs, the daily building of a life with the man she loved. It was not always easy, this life on the Oklahoma prairie, but it was hers, earned and chosen and cherished. The next morning dawned clear and bright, promising a beautiful spring day. Zara woke early and went downstairs to help Mrs. Murphy with breakfast. The older woman was slower now, her hair completely white, her hands gnarled with age, but she still insisted on doing her share of the work. "Good morning, dear," Mrs. Murphy said. "Did you sleep well?" "Very well, thank you." Zara began mixing batter for pancakes while Mrs. Murphy sliced bacon. "I was thinking we should have a party next month for Thomas's birthday. He will be 11, and he has been asking if he can invite his friends from town. That sounds lovely. We could set up tables outside if the weather holds, maybe invite some of the neighbors as well. It has been too long since we had a gathering. They worked together in companionable silence, and Zara marveled at how natural it all felt, how seamlessly she had slipped into this life. There were still moments when she missed Philadelphia, missed the culture and convenience of city life. But those moments grew rarer every year, drowned out by the satisfaction of watching her children grow, of working beside her husband, of being part of a community that valued hard work and loyalty and honesty. Nathan came in from the barn with the boys, all three of them covered in dust and hay. "Fence in the south pasture needs replacing," he told Zara. "I will take the boys with me today and we will get started on it." Thomas, tall for his age and serious like his father, nodded eagerly. James, 7 years old and full of mischief, made a face. "Can I stay and help Mother in the garden instead?" "The garden can wait," Nathan said firmly. "You need to learn how to mend fences. It is part of ranch work." "Yes, sir," James said, but he shot Zara a pleading look that made her hide a smile. After breakfast, the males of the family rode out, leaving Zara with Margaret and Mrs. Murphy. Margaret, at 9, was developing into a thoughtful, studious child who loved nothing more than reading and helping Zara with the small school in town. They spent the morning working in the garden, weeding and watering, and Margaret chattered about the book she was reading, a collection of fairy tales that Zara had ordered from a catalog. "Mother, do you think people can really live happily ever after?" Margaret asked, sitting back on her heels and pushing hair out of her eyes. Zara considered the question carefully. "I think happiness is not a destination you reach and then stop. It is something you build day by day with the choices you make and the people you love. Your father and I are happy, but that does not mean we never have hard times or disagreements. It means we work through them together. So you and Father are living happily ever after." "I suppose we are, in the best way possible." Margaret smiled, satisfied with the answer, and went back to her weeding. Zara watched her daughter work, this child who had her father's dark hair and her mother's love of learning, and felt her heart swell with love. All three of her children were blessings, each one unique and precious, and watching them grow into themselves was one of the greatest joys of her life. That evening, the family gathered around the table for dinner, and the conversation was lively and loud, everyone talking over each other about their day. Nathan caught Zara's eye across the table and winked, and she smiled back, feeling the familiar warmth of connection. This was what she had come west to find, though she had not known it at the time. Not just a husband, but a family. Not just a home, but a place where she belonged absolutely. As the years continued to pass, Zara and Nathan settled into the comfortable rhythms of middle age. Their children grew up and began making their own choices. Thomas showed a natural aptitude for ranching and took on more responsibility, learning everything his father could teach him. Margaret went away to normal school to become a teacher, fulfilling Zara's dreams for her. James, the wild one, talked about heading to California to seek his fortune, and though it worried Zara, she knew she had to let him find his own way. Mrs. Murphy passed away peacefully in her sleep at the age of 78, and they buried her next to her husband on the hill beside the Jensens. Zara grieved the loss of the woman who had become like a mother to her. But she took comfort in knowing Mrs. Murphy had lived a full life and had died surrounded by people who loved her. Nathan's hair went completely gray, and Zara found silver threads in her own dark hair when she looked in the mirror. Their bodies bore the marks of hard work and long years, but they were still strong, still capable. They had built something lasting, something that would outlive them, and they took pride in that. On their 30th anniversary, Nathan surprised Zara with a gift. A piano, shipped all the way from St. Louis and installed in the front room of the ranch house. Zara cried when she saw it, running her hands over the smooth wood, pressing the keys and hearing the music she had missed for so long. "How did you afford this?" she asked, knowing how expensive such a thing must have been. "We have done well over the years. And you have sacrificed so much to be here, to build this life with me. I wanted to give you back something you lost." Zara threw her arms around him and kissed him soundly. "You have given me everything, but thank you. This is wonderful." She played every day after that, filling the house with music, teaching her grandchildren when they came to visit. The piano became the heart of the home, a symbol of how far they had come, of how Zara had brought her old life into her new one and made something beautiful from both. On a warm evening in May, 33 years after their wedding, Nathan and Zara rode out together to the hill overlooking the ranch. They did this often, especially on anniversaries and special occasions, needing to touch base with the past, to remember where they had come from. The cottonwood tree was ancient now, its branches thick and spreading. Thomas's grave was still there, along with his parents and Mrs. Murphy's and her husband's, a small family cemetery marking the generations that had built this place. "You remember that day I asked you to marry me?" Nathan asked, standing with his arm around Zara's waist. "Of course. I thought you were insane." "I might have been, but it worked out." "It did." Zara leaned her head on his shoulder. "We have had a good life, Nathan, a really good life. The best, and it is not over yet." "No, not yet." They stood there as the sun set, watching the colors paint the sky, the prairie stretching away in all directions. Their children were grown, building lives of their own. The ranch was thriving, would continue to thrive under Thomas's management. They had done what they set out to do, built something lasting, created a legacy. But more than that, they had loved each other. Through good times and bad, through loss and joy, through the everyday mundane moments that made up a life, they had chosen each other over and over again. That was the real victory, Zara thought. Not the ranch or the children or the material success, but the love that had grown from a practical arrangement into something deep and true and unshakable. "I would do it all again," Zara said quietly. "Every hard moment, every struggle, every sacrifice. I would do it all again to end up here with you." "So would I," Nathan said. "I was lost before you came. You saved me, Zara. You gave me a reason to live beyond just surviving. We saved each other." "Yes, we did." They stayed on the hill until the stars came out, talking about their life together, remembering all the moments that had brought them to this point. When they finally rode back down to the ranch house, the lights were on inside, and they could see their son Thomas moving around in the kitchen. "He is staying for dinner," Nathan observed. "Probably wants to talk about that new breeding stock." "You love it," Zara said, "teaching him, watching him take over." "I do, but I love this more." He gestured between them. "You and me, that is what matters most." They put the horses away and went inside, where Thomas had indeed started dinner and was waiting to discuss ranch business. But before they got caught up in that, Nathan pulled Zara close and kissed her, long and sweet, and she kissed him back, grateful for every moment they had shared, every choice that had led them here. She had come west to marry his brother who died in April. The cowboy had said, "Then marry me in May." And in saying yes, in taking that leap of faith, Zara had found not just a husband but a partner, not just a home but a family, not just a life but a great love story that had spanned decades and would echo through the generations to come. As they sat down to dinner with their son, as they discussed the future of the ranch and made plans for the years ahead, Zara looked at Nathan across the table and felt the familiar warmth of love, of gratitude, of deep, abiding happiness. They had built this together, piece by piece, day by day, choice by choice. And it was good. It was very, very good. The rest of their lives unfolded gently, without drama or crisis. They grew older together, their love mellowing but never diminishing. They watched their grandchildren grow up on the ranch, teaching them the same lessons they had learned, passing on the values of hard work and honesty and loyalty. They celebrated holidays and birthdays and anniversaries, surrounded by family and friends, building memories that would last long after they were gone. Nathan died first peacefully, at the age of 76. He went to sleep one night with Zara beside him and simply did not wake up. Zara grieved him deeply. The man who had given her a chance when she had nothing, who had loved her faithfully for nearly 40 years, who had built a life with her that exceeded her wildest dreams. They buried him on the hill beside his brother and his parents, and Zara visited the grave every day, telling Nathan about the ranch, about the children and grandchildren, about everything he was missing. She lived another 5 years without him, and they were good years, full of love from her children and grandchildren, full of music and teaching and quiet satisfaction. But she missed Nathan every single day, missed his presence beside her, his hand in hers, his steady voice in her ear. When Zara died at 81, they buried her beside Nathan on the hill overlooking the ranch. Their son Thomas gave the eulogy, talking about his mother's courage, her strength, her love for his father and for all of them. He told the story of how she had come west to marry a man she had never met, how she had stayed and married his uncle instead, how she had built a life from nothing and filled it with love and music and grace. The grandchildren stood by the grave and sang the hymns Zara had taught them, their voices carrying on the wind across the prairie. The great-grandchildren, too young to understand, played in the grass nearby, their laughter a promise of the future, of the legacy Zara and Nathan had created. The ranch continued under Thomas's management, and would eventually pass to his children and their children, generation after generation building on the foundation Zara and Nathan had laid. The piano remained in the front room, played by children and grandchildren, a symbol of where they had come from and what they had become. And on the hill overlooking it all, under the ancient cottonwood tree, Zara and Nathan rested side by side, together even in death as they had been in life. Their graves were marked with simple stones bearing their names and the years they had lived, but the real marker was the ranch itself, the life they had built, the love they had shared. She had come west to marry his brother who died in April. The cowboy had said, "Then marry me in May." And from that practical proposal had grown a love story for the ages, a testament to the power of choice, of courage, of second chances. It was a story that would be told and retold in the family for generations, a reminder that sometimes the detours in life lead us exactly where we need to be, that love can grow in the most unexpected places, and that happiness is not found but built, day by day, choice by choice, with the people we love and the lives we create together. The prairie stretched away from the hill in all directions, vast and beautiful and endless, and the wind moved through the grass as it always had, as it always would, carrying the stories of all who had lived and loved and died there, including Zara Bennett Jensen and Nathan James Jensen, whose love had begun with a telegram and a proposal and had lasted through 4 decades and beyond, a love that had shaped not just their lives but the lives of everyone who came after them. They had lived fully, loved deeply, and left behind a legacy that would endure as long as the ranch stood, as long as the cottonwood tree grew on the hill, as long as the wind moved across the Oklahoma prairie. And that was as close to happily ever after as any real life could come. A story with a beginning, a middle, and a proper end, all threads tied up, all promises kept, all love honored and remembered and passed down through the years. The sun set over the ranch that evening, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink and purple, and if you listened carefully, you might have heard music on the wind, piano notes carried from the house below, where great-great-grandchildren played the songs Zara had taught their grandparents. The sound drifted up the hill and across the graves, a reminder that love never really dies. It just transforms, echoing through time in the lives we touch and the memories we create and the legacy we leave behind. And so the story ends, not with tragedy or sorrow, but with the quiet satisfaction of a life well lived, a love well loved, and a family well raised. Zara came west to marry one brother and married another, and in doing so, found everything she had been seeking and so much more. Nathan took a chance on a grieving stranger and found the love of his life. Together they built something lasting, something beautiful, something that would outlive them both and stand as a testament to the power of human connection, of choosing love over fear, of building a life together one day at a time. The story of Zara Bennett and Nathan Jensen, who married in May of 1887 and loved each other for the rest of their lives, is complete. Their graves rest on the hill, their ranch thrives in the valley below, and their love story lives on in the hearts and memories of all who came after them. A reminder that the best stories are the ones we live ourselves, choosing courage over comfort, love over loneliness, and hope over despair, building our own happily ever afters one choice, one day, one moment at a time.